welcome to this video on patterns. Now there are many different types of patterns, whether you have images or numbers or letters, but we're just going to look here at two different numerical patterns, and we're going to describe the patterns we see and then come up with an explicit formula for finding any number in that pattern. First pattern we have here, 16, 27, 38, and 49, we want to describe in words the pattern that we see. Then find the next two terms. So if we look here, 16 to 27, 27 to 38, we can see pretty quickly that to find each following term, we add 11. So what is the pattern? Well, we start with 16, then add 11 to each term. So if we were to continue this and we wanted to find the next two terms, add 11 to 49, that gives us 60. Add 11 to 60, we get 71. So that would be the next two terms. With this second pattern that we have, pattern of numbers, what we can realize is that the numbers are getting smaller, not bigger in this case, and they're not getting smaller by a common number. They're actually being halved, right? So 80 is half of 160 and so on. So start with 180, then take half of each number. Well, mathematically, what does it mean to take half? We could also use the words divide by 2. Or dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So if we continue this pattern, half of 20 is 10, half of 10 is 5, and we could of course continue from there. We would just end up with fractions. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at these same two patterns, and we're going to come up with an explicit formula for the nth term. What does that mean? That means I want some formula to where if I plugged in 1, I would get the first term, 5, I would get the fifth term, and so on. So let's just write down each term and see if we can realize the pattern. So if we know we're adding 11 to get each subsequent term, what would I add, what would I add 11 to get 16? That would be 5 plus 11. So if 5 plus 11 is 16, then 27 is 5 plus 11 plus 11. And if 38 is when I add 11 to the previous one, that's 5 plus 11 plus 11 plus 11, and so on. So the first term, I've added 11 once. The second term, I've added 11 twice, and so on. So the explicit formula, we start with 5 and we add 11 n times. So let's test and see if this works. If I were to substitute 3 for n, I would have 5 plus 11 times 3. 5 plus 33 is 38. So the third term is 38. That makes sense. Okay, let's do something similar with this second pattern here. But we don't add 11 each time. We divide by 2, or as I said, multiply by 1/2. So 160 is half of what? 160 is half of 320. So 320 times 1/2. 80 is half of that, so 320 times 1/2 times 1/2. 320 times 1/2, and then 1/2 of that, and so on. So the pattern we can see here is that we multiply by 1/2, starting with 320, times 1/2. Well, if we multiply by 1/2 twice, or 3 times, or 4 times, that actually becomes our exponent. So we've come up with an explicit formula to represent each term of this pattern.